Good thing. Thank you. So tonight we have a very special speaker. Tina Liu is the head horticulturalist with the National Capital Commission. She has an amazing horticultural experience. She is, among other things, an international judge for communities in bloom. She designs the fabulous gardens that we see that are managed by the National Capital Commission. So Commissionaires Park, which is the center point for the Tulip Festival. And by the way, a little later on this year, as a member of the OHS, you will be able to join Tina on a special tour of the Tulip Festival flowers at Commissionaires Park. As I mentioned, she's a national judge for communities in bloom. And in her leisure time, Tina loves to work in her own garden. She appreciates plants for their natural shapes, textures, and other beneficial properties, and not just for the colors of their blooms. She's an advocate of productive landscaping. She likes to use herbs, vegetables, and medicinal plants as important design elements. In fact, I used to work near Dow's Lake, and I loved walking through Commissionaires Park. One year, I remember Tina planted artichokes, which are just this amazing structural plant to look at with those gorgeous big thistle-like flowers. And then lo and behold, they actually produced fruit at the end of the season. So tonight, Tina is going to be talking to us about the designs that she uses. And I'm just going to take us to share screen and get you set up with your presentation. And please take the chair.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Tina Liu. I'm sorry I have to sit down. I'm not very used to it. I normally like to walk around when I talk, but so this is not my first time here. I was here 2018, I think. We were talking about the Capital Floral program in general. And today I want to talk more about our annual program and then how we select the plants and to represent true Canadian landscape design. Let me see where I can start doing this live. Here. Am I showing the slide? Okay.
Okay, I'm going to try. Sorry, Tina, I'm just going to move this out of the way.
I just want to see if the online audience are still seeing this. I'm trying to do a full screen. Okay.
We're seeing full screen. Yeah.
Yeah, it's whether it's going to the YouTube or
yeah,
not.
but because it's share, it's
Let's just do an alt tab and take us over there. So
see if the YouTube is doing live.
sorry, I need to. So it's not quite. Let's try fiddling with this. Come on.
We can do just the full screen slideshow on PowerPoint, and they should be able to see that.
Yeah. Keep losing my mouse. There it is. Okay.
Yeah, that's good. Okay. So we used to talk about the Capital Floral program, which includes the the tulip program and the annual program. And now that we talked about the capital floral experience, which the floral program is part of the experience, because the experience is not just the tulips and the annuals. It also included perennial beds, and then it's an overall experience that we wanted to create, not just in the federal parklands, but we wanted to work with our partners. Right now, we are working towards to have the Confederation Boulevard, which is in downtown core, to get more partners to work together, like towards the goal of maybe we just, because right now I'm going to talk a bit later about the theme that we would have every year, so that we would work with our partners. So our partner would work on their own land and with their own budget, and then but everybody work on like a holistic design or theme colors or something to connect, so that this is an overall experience for everyone and not just individual little gardens and parks everywhere. So we're going to talk more about that a little later. So this is a capital annual floral program, so which is part of the capital floral program itself. So the program consists of the spring bulbs, which are the Canadian Tulip Festival that you see the tulips in the springtime. And then once the tulip is done, probably right now we're thinking about the first week of June. It's because of climate change, and we all see the changes in the flowers, including the blooming time, and also it's fluctuated in the past few years. We've been having different experience, and so we've been trying to capture the best the gaps, how we, when we do the design, and how we really, when we had a wet March and then all of a sudden a very freezing April, like a few years back, and how we deal with that kind of weather, and how do our design that reflect that and without being affected, because some of these species, like especially for tulips, some are more sensitive to than others. Some would be stunned by the cold weather, or all of a sudden the frost overnight. Some of the cultivars that we know that the staples that we normally use were not affected as much. So how do we mix them? How do we do it in a way, and it could be a pattern, it could be a mix, and how the entire park flow when how we place these tulips. Because every year we use about 100 different cultivars and species of the different tulips. So now, and then in the first week of June, we will remove the tulips, and then we will plant the annuals. And the annuals, they were actually, all the design that you see is done 12 to 18 months ahead of time, so that we can order the plants and have them start growing them in a greenhouse throughout the winter time. And then we do an inspection sometimes in February or March to see the plant, and then we hear from our growers. Now we use multiple growers. Actually, our contractors, they have the growers to grow the plants, and then we would inspect them, and they would deliver in June. So we plant them in first week of June most of the time. Other than the annual program, that in these beds we have 120 beds that are from tulips to annuals, and then we have other perennial beds, which is in a lot of the parks. And because perennial, they also have a life cycle. So some of the older parks that we have, we need to do rehabs for some of the beds. So we're trying to do work that into the contract with our contractors, that they have to maintain the perennial bed as well. And sometimes we would have them help us to divide them, and then we can transplant them somewhere else. Because budget is always a concern. Like we want a new flower bed and stuff. Like if we have the materials and it's a growing material, why don't we use them, right? So inventory is very important as well. So we're starting to do inventory plan, which wasn't a normal practice 10 years ago. I mean, in public parkland design. And then we also start doing mixed all-season displays, so that throughout winter time, it's some of the seed head were left for the birds, for the wildlife, and it was an experiment a few years ago, when we experienced some of the wildlife vandalism from wildlife, that they've been eating up all their stuff, chewing off the barks of some of the trees and shrubs in Majors Hill Park. And I've been thinking, instead of not let them, they plant things that they don't eat, why don't we plant something that they eat, and then they survive, and then they don't eat the things that we don't want them to eat. You know, this is what I've been trying to do in the past few years in our annual program as well, because this is how I think to maintain a balanced, healthy ecosystem in our urban environment, it's an indicator for a healthy city. So we take care of wildlife, animals, and insects, pollinators, everything, and the users. Users include human and animals that are wildlife, and we live together, we share the space. So the program itself this is the fall program with the bulbs and annual program. We have 8 different portfolios. So the Rideau Canal Corridor, which is our largest contract, is running from Rideau Canal, blocking from the Cooper Street all the way down to Dow's Lake, so along the canal. And then we have core area with the government sites, which are sites that were owned by other government agencies, such as Public Works, Parks Canada, like Parliament Hills, and the NCC managed the grounds, but then it's owned by Public Works. And as an example, and then the second core area, which is Confederation Boulevard and NCC land. These are the lands that around the core, in the core area, but it's owned by the NCC, owned and managed. And then Quebec lands on the other side of the bridge, in the Gatineau side. And then we have Sussex North and Eastern lands, which is Rockcliffe Park, and then we have some Laurier houses owned by Parks Canada, but we manage the sites with the landscaping. Western land, it's at the farm. And we have a few beds close to the farm and the farm drive, and also the Maple Line Gardens is also included in our Western lands. Southern lands is Hawksback Park, Gatineau Park, and included the Mackenzie King Estate and the Kingsmere Cottage. And then the official residence is all the official residence in the capital national capital region, so including Rideau Halls, 24 Sussex, and the farm, and Rideau Cottage. And so as an example of how the springtime it looks like, this one is a Malakashh bed. It's at the south edge of the Canadian Museum of History. And this is Malakash's favorite tulips. This is pink impressions and golden parade. Yes. Oh, okay. Okay. That's why I like standing up. Okay, I try to talk louder. Okay. Sorry.
I'm gonna see if I can get this to, sorry, Tina. I've just got so many bits and bobs here. Let's see if we can put this up here.
Okay. Is that a amplifier?
It's supposed to be, yeah.
You want to? Yeah. Hello. Is it better? Like, am I talking through here?
Yeah, you're talking through there.
Wait. Okay. So maybe I sit closer. Yeah. Is this one working?
Mhm.
Okay.
Coming through here at all.
Okay. it on?
It's on, but
Okay.
does these buttons do anything?
No,
Should be okay. I mucked around with them.
so. No, it's exactly when you went online, did you hear that sound? It's connected to you.
That's okay. So I can talk through here.
You should be able to
Yeah, okay.
speak through there, yeah.
Okay. So I try to talk louder. Sorry about that. So this is the springtime with the tulips, and then here would be the and in the summertime with the annuals. And then this is Major Seal Park, and this is the springtime. And this is summertime. So we use different, because for annuals, we have more selection. So because it's not going to, we use a lot of the herbs and vegetables and also tropical plants because it's annuals. Whereas in our perennial program, we try to use more native plants and combinations as well. So this is in Jacques Cartier Park in Gatineau in springtime, and then this in summertime. So I've been using a lot of mixes. So I will talk about that a little later and why I tend to use more mixes than the traditional method is having begonias and impatiens, and then a sea of them, and to use mixes, there are a lot of different benefits. Yes. Oh, okay. Even louder. I try to I want to make sure the audience in the online participant would also hear. So this one is in Major Seal Park. This one is in the east entrance, as along Queen Elizabeth Driveway. And because of the backdrop of these houses, it would always create a nice stage for the flowers. So this is the spring display, and this is summertime. So this one, as you can see, there are some biannuals, there are annuals. So like the digitalis are biannual. Sometimes if we know that some of the plants are going to survive for another year or two, we would have our contractor to harvest them at the end of the season, and then we would move it to other part of the park or in other sites that we can still use these plants. And for bigger plants, such as my favorite red bananas, or the tarols, which is the Alacosia. The bigger plants, the elephant ears, sometimes not so much of the peppers because they grow faster. And so for these other plants, our grower would always take them back to their greenhouse for the winter time. So, and then the next year I buy them back with the same price. So then we got a bigger plant. And it's much cheaper than buying a second year growth, right? And then sometimes when your budget is not growing, this is how you have to be creative in the design, and also in how we manage and maintain the maintenance, and also how we keep the plants. And how we space them, and we use plants that grow fast so that we cover the soil, and then maintain the moisture in the soil better. So this is the annual program. Like I mentioned, it's 120 planting beds all over in the National Capital Region, and that's 14,000 square meters. And I always compare to 9 hockey rinks, NHL size hockey rinks. This is how much tulips or annuals that we plant every year. And 250 portable concrete planters that you see along the Confederation Boulevard, downtown on Parliament Hill, right now because Wellington is closed for traffic, for car traffic. So for just to dress it up, and also as not to use the concrete jersey barrier, like those orange big concrete blocks. We have changed them to flower planters. So which is, we're adding more this year. So it looks friendlier because Parliament Hill is under construction for another maybe 10 years because of the extensive upgrade that we have to do inside. So to be able to have flower planters to dress up the outside, it's always nice. Especially in the summertime during Canada Day, the people are still visiting the sites. And there are also, so there are 250,000 annual plants were planted every year. And then, and over 200 species, hybrid or cultivars were used every year. With the amount of sites that we have to cover. So this is an earlier time. This is about 10 years ago when I've been working with the NCC for 13 years. And this is when I started with the 13 years ago with the program. I try to use some different patterns and just to spice it up a bit. At the time I was new to Ottawa, and it's just trying to bring in something that is less traditional, because with mono gardening, like if you're planting this one species and it's just like agriculture, right? And then it's going to deplete the soil, and it's going to, you can tell it by the also the fertilizers that you're using. Back then, a lot of mostly would use all-purpose fertilizers, right? So 10-10-10, 13-13-13, and sometimes it's not really good for the soil, or not really good for other plants, and we were trying to plant a different plant next year. So our soil condition is closely monitored. We would have them, we do soil tests. If we see some problems, if we see some of the flowers are not flowering, but we have a lot of leaves, and then you kind of know what is going on, and then we do a soil test. But oftentimes I try to mix a different type of plants, different species, so that it actually would help with how the chemistry work in the soil. So this is when it mature. So this is 13 years ago, like I mentioned, and this is how this mixes started, as I was using this a perennial concept in an annual design. And this is more like a pattern. This is just an experiment on a smaller bat. So I drove the contractor crazy, but trying to lay this out, I gave him a template. And then now that I move on to a different type of planting that is save more time and maintenance. And this is how it grew out, and to be, it still has the pattern, but then it's just to cut down on the labor time and the maintenance side.
So can you let us know what the plants are that
Uh,
are?
there are a lot of them, so I can go through. Yeah. I can, if I can make that into a PDF, and you have any questions, and so this are the Calicosia. This one in particular is one of my favorites. Is the Hawaiian red, as a red stem. I really liked it. And then this is mostly foliage. This one is in Major Hill Park. It's overlooking the Ottawa River. And this is when it was first planted. I think it was the first week or two. And these are Colliers, Arisons, I forgot this name. The Creeping Jenny. It's perennial, so we leave them there every year. And in some of the sites too, some of the plants that if I know that they're perennial, I will leave them and ask the contractors not to pull them out. And this is another thing about having a very good communications with your contractors, because they are commercial contractors. If you don't tell them what is what? And a lot of these, the labor that they hire are seasonal laborers. They just think that, they pull out, this is the old way of doing things, is pull out the bulbs, plant the annuals, water, weed, and that's all you do, right? And then at the end of season, we remove everything. And this is what we have been doing for the past 20, 30 years. But right now, by changing the way and changing the thinking of how some of the plants that we can actually reuse them and they will regrow, and it's a learning curve for everyone. So to make sure that when we do those species tulip that we plant on the lawn with daffodils and all that, make sure to tell the contractor do not mold them at the early spring, because once they see something growing, they mold it, right? And then it happened actually 2 years in a row. Then my species tulip never get to grow. It was a site along the canal. And then to make sure that I send email to everyone, you have to copy everyone on earth who touched the project, say, do not mow the lawn. And I go down every day, just make sure that the lawnmower don't go on the lawn, and tell them that they are flower buds and they're going to bloom. Okay. But because they're commercial maintenance, to them, anything, it's not grass, it's weed. Okay, that is something that it's a learning curve for everyone, and then so we're both are learning, and also there are other concepts of how to not remove the leaves from the park and then put them back as mulch, shred them, they bring in a shredder and put them back as mulch. At first, like, it is a different concept, because what they did is, normal back in the days, they would remove bags and bags and trucks loads of these leaves, the fallen leaves, and then they would import these, from other sites, the mulch, like wood chips, to cover the tree, and it just doesn't make sense. And then when you were there and tell them to, okay, can you just rake them back on another tree, and then they think that I'm crazy, right? But this is the concept that, and over the years, it takes a few years, and then and why we do this, and then we start to go down to talk to contractors, and then now that we're actually thinking that maybe training sessions would help. It's how I think commercial landscaping, they are getting onto a lot of them are more ecological thinking now, so which is great. So this is in a particular bed, and it's on Parliament Hill, not Parliament Hill, on Regis Hill Park, overlooking Parliament Hill. And this is when they first planted, and when it's full grown, it looks different, but it still look nice. So this is when we decided, obviously we use the mature sizing, and we try to have them cover the soil so that we maintain the moisture. We don't have to always have the sprinklers on. We time, and every bed is different because of the location, the sun orientation. So they cannot turn on the irrigation at the same time. These kind of things that also need to be communicated. It takes time and patience, and it would pay off. So these are different colliers that I use. I love the colliers. These ones are the planters. We have 250 planters and in 8 different designs. And now it's more because of the bistros that we have downtown in different areas, and they have different dimensions. So I have to do different design for them. So every year there are, the plants have, the designs are different, but I try to use either similar plants or similar colors or something to tie them together as a theme. And then we're going to talk about the themes later. So these are the papyrus. These are garden park papyrus, because papyrus used to be aquatic plants. And then these are has been hybridized so that they can grow in soil. And these are pretty good. These are the king tuts. As for begonias, in a sunny location, I like to use dragon wings. And I think this or the big and the whoopers, they are my favorite. Sure performers, flowers everywhere. And these are potato vines, and on this particular site, I have been using potato vines, and this is a Plaza Bridge, and across from Chateau Laurier. These potato vines, been using them for, I think this is the Margarita line. I've been using them for a long time, and until this one year that a family of groundhogs appears, and then they will all turn into little sticks, and but at least we fed them, you know. Sometimes as the gardeners, you can't be angry about these things, because this is, you know, this is environment for all. Like at nighttime they come out, and then you gotta plant something else that would, this is also why I start using mixes. So it, you know, whatever was more dominant at the time can grow and take up the space, and then cover the soil so it maintain the moisture. And another site, this one is Canadian Museum of History. And this is my red bananas. This is a 2nd-year growth. That's why it's taller when it's first planted, probably 3 weeks into the planting. And a mix of the different colors, because I always work with the client site, which is I check with what their exhibition is going to be for the following year. So when I design it, then I know that they're going to do Napoleon Paris theme. So it's a French color. Salvias. So these are the bigger salvias. I think these are the Grandstand, Mystic Spires. The Grandstand series is huge, so they're nice. And the red one, I think that's Tabasco, and there's a red one. They're really nice too. And this is a different type of impatiens. This one is the painted leaves, painted paradise. So the leaves itself is orange, and you don't really need a lot of flowers. It's fun to play with foliage, because you don't always have to wait for the flowers to bloom and then to pair them. I think it's Ortonatera on the border, and there are some Dusty Millers. They're all different type of Dusty Millers, but when you design them, it's very, you look at the catalog, oh, this one looks nice, like the Silver Angels or Angel Wings, they're 5 times the price. So you just have to, sometimes I just design whatever, like, oh, this one looks nice. And the catalogs, I look at all different catalogs, from the seed catalog, plugs catalogs, cuttings catalogs from all the different suppliers. And once you send to the contractor send to their growers, and then they price it out, and then they would come back, say, okay, this is not available. So, well, no way, this is not available. It's they're selling it. And afterward, you find out that because the price is higher, and the contractor obviously don't want to eat into their costs. So sometimes it's a balance point, right? So if we can replace it something that with very similar, that doesn't affect anything, then I would definitely do it. You know, everybody wants to save some money, and then it's a win-win situation at times, because if you can buy a plant for 32 cents, would you pay $3 for it, right? And then so this is another example, because this site is in Commissioners Park and the East Entrance. We have a lot of bunnies there. And so I tried to bunnies. I think this is Mexican marigold. We kind of drive them away. And just this bed, because I plant something else in a different bed so that they can eat. In a smaller bed that is behind. I feed them and make sure they're well fed. And these, I think this I think this is Bengal tiger, I think. It's really nice leaves and really bright lime, and then with the vein is green. It's really nice. I think this is Collier's the red hat, one of my favorites. If you come to my other talks, you would know the red hat's always my favorite. It performed really well. This Collier's in the sun or shade. In sun location is very red, and the shady is even nicer. It's a fuchsia, really dark fuchsia color. It's really nice. And this is Garden of the Provinces. We don't have annuals there anymore, but I wanted to show this impatiens. This one is the Sun Patient series. I think this one is the vigorous. So they are about 60 to 70 centimeters tall, and is covered with flowers under the sun. They love the sun. The Sun Patient series are really nice too. The flowers are normally bigger size. And in the past few years, maybe during the pandemic, they were working in the lab. There are a lot more colors, which is quite awesome. And this is Calicosia. The Hawaiian series has a lot of different types. So there are blue Hawaiian, the red Hawaiian, And they all have this different color vein. It's really nice too. And the red banana is always my favorite. Under the sun, the leaves is purple and red. I believe this Colliers is taller. This one is the Texas parking lot, I think. There are many types. And this one is at the Malak Bat across the river, red and white. I think this was the year 2017. It was 150, Canada 150. So we have a lot of red and white that year. And Cosmo is good to it differ past, and even when you plant in vegetable garden, we're going to talk about that later. And then the white tiger tails, it's also called white lancer. It's the grass that you see here. It's a panacetum. And this bat is in Champagne Bridge, and this one is all foliage. There's no flowers, so it actually lasts all season from June all the way to I think we removed them. We planted tulip bulbs in the weekend. It's starting in the weekend of Canadian Thanksgiving, and this is the color show. It's solid. And this canna, I like this canna. It's called Intrigue. It's not for the colors. This canna is for the leaves. It's very stiff, very tall. This is about 8 feet tall. It's really nice. And red hat colliers, obviously, and the one at the back is either it doesn't look like it could be Texas parking lot, or there's another one that at other colliers is that tall as the Freckles. It's nice too. It's orange and yellow. And then the renters, and this is the icicle plant. And mixes. This is in Jacques Cartier Park. Is also different mix. And I've been using more mixes than before, like I mentioned. So when I plan the annual plans, it's not like, you know, in the old days you would measure the bed, and then you plan how many impatiens or begonias, and then you just plant them. And then if they die, the contractor has to remove and replace. And sometimes is, you know, we're not looking at a bed in front of the house. We're looking at a bed that's 400 square meters big. So the contractors will have weed and go in there and then see holes. And sometimes you have 10 to 15% contingency in your budget, but it's not enough to cover. Sometimes there's a drought over, you know, in summertime, and then the plants just can't survive. So with this kind of mixes is I call it evolving landscape. So I have plants that would be blooming in June, and then different plants come up in July, different plants come up in August, so that they have different time to shine, and then they take up the space, and they have different time that they were dominating the flower beds. So the season keep moving. The display keep moving as well, as whether there's a color, whether there's a texture, whether there's height, and they would keep changing. So every 2-3 weeks you come back to the park, it looks different. And it helps with maintaining moisture in the soil, because there are different plants would be growing, and you don't need the irrigation to go up so many times a day or so long a day. And then so and if these were all being monitored, and then we can actually save a lot of resources in terms of water or even fertilizers and all these. And by using mixes, they're obviously with the biodiversity and adds benefit to the different insects would flavor different type of plants. And then you would attract different pollinators. And sometimes with the grass as well. And the grass is a good habitat for a lot of different insects and animals. And this was an accidental garden. I always like it. I love this. I love doing these, just like the tulips, right? You can design according to the height, the color, the bloom time, the groups, and the texture. But Mother Nature doesn't want that, you know, it's showing you who's the boss. And then you just have to play by ear, okay? Whatever bloom is great, you know, and you just have, you wouldn't So you don't feel defeated. And this is what planting flower gardening is supposed to be a happy thing. So people see flowers and it's very emotionally, and I always talk about green spaces are not just for people, the parks are not just for people for physical health and also the mental wellness as well. You see plants, you see beautiful flowers, and it makes you feel happy. And this is good for community development and social coherence in the society. And this one is I ordered I think it was only 2 different types of zinnias. And then ended up the contractors, sent it to the grower, and the grower kind of mixed with the different seeds. So these are like 5 or 6 different types of zinnias were all mixed in one pack. And so they plan it, of course, when they deliver in the first week of June, you can't tell because there's no flowers. It's just the leaves, right? And then so they plan it as, okay, everything looks nice. And I was playing with the different height. So the really blue, I love these blue, because there's not a lot of blue annuals. So I've been looking for blue annuals. And if you have been in Commissioner's Park, you see this one bed that I always plant blue, the different types of blue. And I had 10 different types last year. And so this blue, this is the salvia. This is a patio series. The patio series kind of look like sweet pea flowers. This one is sky blue. It's one of my favorites. I have a lot of favorites. So with the mixed zinnias, the seed was mixed. And then when I was there, the first inspection was the end of July. And then the second one is end of August. And then the third one is normally we do it the end of September. So this showed up in the second, I was in the park all the time, so I kind of see that they were growing, and I was like, okay, there's different colors. And then the contractor's starting to feel like, it's not our fault, we ordered a thing we don't know. And then, this is nice. I love it. And then it was, oh, okay. So this is how I think that, mix of colors it looks natural. And as long as it still look manicured and it's a nice design. And then there are and you see these, potato vines that I plant some, I mix in, and this is my type of sacrificial planting. I always call it, it's for the wildlife to eat. If they don't eat it, it would be a nice background. If they eat it, it's their food. And people don't know, people think that you just plant there and then, but at least, you feed them, it's wildlife, they're going to reproduce anyways, and they're going to eat things that you don't want them to eat. Why don't you just give them what they want? Yeah, always give people what they want. So this is the blue bed that I was talking about. This one was last year. So I searched high and low for all the different shades of blues. So this one is black and blue. There's a salvia. There's also another salvia. It's called Playing the Blues. It's also blue and tall, really tall salvia. And there are different ones. I pair them with some silver leaves. And there are ageratums and more salvias, all different types. I think there's a Victoria salvia at the back. So it's not a lot of blue in annuals. But at least you can find some, but not a lot. And the high tide blue ageratum is really nice too. And this is my other, instead of doing a pattern that drive everybody nuts, this is my, I always come up with different names. So this is my mosaic bed, and my mosaic is the random mosaic. It's just, I would list out a list of 10 or different type of plants. So these are all actually have been tested out years before. And then every year been testing small parts and testing in my garden to see how they grow and how they're competing with each other. So this bed has 10 different plants, but the instruction for the contractors, the first year I did this, the contractor was thinking, okay, this doesn't make sense. I tell them to group them in groups of 15 and groups of 25 and then groups of 30, and depending on the size of the plant. And because they're traditional landscape contractors, they don't understand they said, just tell me what is per square meters, and I have to plan in this. I said, I don't want to give you templates. I said, just group them. These are 25 centimeters apart. These are 30 centimeters apart. Those are 50 centimeters apart. They think that I'm crazy, but and they didn't care. So what they did, they lined them up in rows, and they look awful. And then I was like, this is not what I want. He's like, then they actually told me that this is how you line up. You have to put the shortest one in the front and the tallest one in the back. I said, no, I don't do it that way. And then, but it's already planted. I don't want to give people a hard time, but I said, next year, when you have to plan, give me a call. I would come running. And so I was down there with paws on the ground, and then I was laying out for them. So this is a group of 10, but then they said, well, but it's not circle, it's not rectangle. I said, I don't need it to be circle or rectangle. And then just group them. And then, and they were like looking at me like I have 3 hats. So I was there doing it by myself. They were all like standing beside me, and then it's like, so I was enjoying it. And this is a fun thing of doing this type of mosaic, right? And then I just group them, and I tell them, because this one has to be 30 centimeters apart, and then you just do it organic shape. And then the other one would just connect to it like puzzle pieces. And then they think that I'm like totally out of my mind. And then it's all right, that's what you want me to do, we do it. And then so they go on, and then they continue and finish the bed. And then they keep shaking their heads. They're thinking, this girl is crazy. And then a month later, we went on for our first inspection, which is this one. And then they had their supervisor came from Montreal to see it, because they're very concerned about this design. And then they came to the site and they saw it. It's like an aha moment for them. Oh, that's what you mean. I said, yeah, that's exactly what's in my head. And I told them, I probably scared them a bit. I was very excited. And so that's what it is. I have been doing this for the past few years. But these are tested, so I know that they are not overly compete with each other. So these ones that they are throughout the season, and we monitor to see that because some of them are foliage plants, some of them are flowering plants, some of them are columnar, some of them are spreading. So you got to make sure that sometimes I feel like if some are encroaching in the other area because they're more dominant, that's fine too, as long as the soil has been covered. Like for me, the soil being covered is very important, and so that we don't have bare spots, and then there are to maintain the moisture in the soil is healthy. If you have healthy soil, you have healthy plants. And this is actually, I think this is my first edible planting that I designed, was edible flower beds other than a vegetable garden. So this is 2011. And there was the 125th anniversary of the Agriculture Canada Central Experimental Farm. So I plant 80% of the plants we use in here are edible plants, but not just edible for human. These are also edible for animals. Some of them I plant them for the birds. The sorghums, the corns are for the birds, and the millets. It was crazy. Like, you see the amount of birds were there. It's just, and that's why I started planting things for wildlife, and it just makes you happy. You're feeding them. So this is when they first planted, the second week, and the sunflowers actually different types. So later in the season, it's a different height, and so their sorghums, what the indigenous people used to make alcohol at the time, and then the sorghum is like a type of crops, and then there are millets in the front, and there's a wheat. This is a millet. I think this is called a Jade Princess. It's really pretty. Under the sun, it actually has a purple tone to it. It's really nice. And there are corns at the back. And now that I started to study more about ethnobotany, and then just in the past year or so, during the COVID time, I was reading up about indigenous planting and their environmental sustainability and ecological thinking, and it makes a lot of sense. And I've been trying to incorporate that, but that would be another talk. So this is a wheat. It's called teal wheat. It's a teal color. The entire plant is teal color. But these are, wheat is a shorter life cycle. So they were done in, I think, at the end of August. And then so the contractor was panicked because they said, we're not replacing it. This is too much. And then to me, it's done. It was designed intentionally because this is how you mimic the cycle of what is on the farm, because we're designing for the theme of the farm. So as once they're done, you can just remove them, you can cut them, and this is how they do it out in the field. And so design concept needs to be really explained or transfer to the contractor as well, because when they maintain it, they need to understand what you're doing. Communication is key for anything. Even our own, we have our contract management officers. It also takes time to communicate with them because they're also used to commercial grade of landscaping. But if you tell them this is going to save you time, this is going to save you money, and everybody's on board. This one was the Queen Juliana bed in the springtime. So this is Dow's Lake. The wheat, this is a teal wheat. It's teal color. It's really, really pretty. This bed is the same. It's the same bed. So if you go, so this has many different plants. See, all the way to K, L, yeah. So there are different type of crops were used, edible plants, and then since then I have been there's no return. I've been planting a lot of vegetables and crops and everything, incorporating in the design, because traditionally people would plant flowers in vegetable gardens to keep pets away, to drive worms or hornworms or flies, white flies and stuff like that, and to drive those pets away, or to make your depending on how you pair with, say, basil with tomatoes, you would have tomatoes have a basil taste or hint of taste in it, but most of the time when you plant flower with vegetables are for a certain purpose. So I started to do this one is 2012, is to use vegetables as plant materials in the planting beds. And the more I do it, the more I think, if everyone do that at home, and especially during the COVID time with the food security being very concerned topics, like all over the world, that people are talking about, how they can plant. And if you remember at the beginning of the pandemic, the garden center sold out of everything. By the time of the mid-May, there's no more vegetable was for sale in the garden center. It was crazy. And then all the garden sales drive up 50%, at least 50 to 60% in any garden center. They couldn't even get flower pots and soil and compost, and it was crazy. So that built into, that was actually happened afterward. I have already been planting a lot of the food plants in the federal parklands in the capital 10 years before that. And I think when people see something like that, I think this is something that people can do it at home. Is to be able to do that in a large scale is also to showcase what people can do at home as well. And it's I hope that would inspire some people would try to do the gardening at home, and try to use vegetables as a plant material. So these ones are Brussels sprouts, and I paired them with a vertical plant. So this is salvia. I think this is the evolution series. So I got that was a surprise for these projects. So I planted a lot of food, and I was just having fun doing that. And we got a lot of phone calls, people asking, what are those things? And then you were surprised, people don't know. And then I was at the park, and I like to point it out, people probably don't know who I am, right? And they just like, oh, what are these? And then they were like walking the kids and the dogs, and I was like, these are Brussels sprouts. And then they were like, what? It grow like that? You know, it's very interesting. It's definitely a conversation starter. And then to talk to people about these kind of things. And I think there's an educational value too. So kids know where their food come from and what they actually look like when they're on the plant, not in the bag, you know, in the frozen food aisle. So this is the artichokes. So I mixed the artichokes with the zinnias at the front. And then we have the penicillium at the back. And then they do come into flowers. Most of the time when there's, you know, if you're growing a crop, they would cut them before they flowers. But if you let them flowers, they actually look really nice. I planted them on in the Prime Minister's office last year. I think I planted the red stars artichokes. I've been planting food in his office for the past 5-6 years, and I don't know if you noticed, but but I just think that it's a great idea. Like, you know, you plant food, and then there's the people. It can be so close to people. Just, you know, their kales, their artichokes, and then their cabbage, and it's a plant, and then it's something that it also has beauty in it. It's not just, it's a food source as well. So I think it's multi-purpose, and they also. Most of these food plants, they are very structural, so which really adds to your design. And this is another bed that with I had the nasturtium inside, and which is also like a trap crop, right? It traps the pest. And then outside is the sweet charts. This one is the bright lights. The bright light is like a rainbow colors. I love it. And what they did is, you see the animals in the park, they start showing the outside, which is the older part of the plant, which is great. So it's a new one would grow, you know, they can't eat them all. So it won't really jeopardize your design, but you feed them. And it's just, you know, you can see that, you know, and the little corners that they've been chewing on the outside, and which is great, you know, and then this is a different type. This is cauliflower. So the cauliflower, some of them unfortunately bolted, but then, you know, for us it's not growing crops, so it's just to show how people can do that. And it's actually turned out really well. So this is the Veronica. So the Veronica is the spiral, like different horns, like different shapes that you normally see, is a different type of cauliflower, and it's edible. I planted some cheddar cauliflower last year too. It's just some fun thing to do. And so I was enjoying a feast there. But so it really depending on the site. So this one was not a very good experience because this was on Parliament Hill, right at the base of the Peace Tower. And these buddies are very, very cheeky. And then, you know, they come out and they just eat it in front of you, like, haha, what can you do? Because we do not use any chemicals in federal land. And we obviously, the only way you can get rid of them is to trap them. But then it's very hard to trap them, you know, on Parliament Hill. And then, you know, there were a lot of visitors, right, before when people can go up to the stairs. And we have our contractors would have their headlights on at nighttime to capture them, which is impossible because I think each side we have over 10 of them, right, when they start to reproduce in the spring season. So the only way to do it is to feed them, so that you feed them what they eat, and then so they don't eat what you don't want them to eat. Otherwise, if they start eating whatever is there, right? So because there's one year that they don't touch certain type of salvia, they eat other stuff. And then the second year, they start eating the one that they didn't eat last year. So obviously they wanted to eat, you know, they have to feed. So I started doing things differently. This is about almost 10 years ago. So this is what we have to do because they eat all the white flocks. And then this is tiny flocks. I think this is century 21 century, 2021, the white one. So they ate them all. So we removed them and it's like bare soil. And it's not so bad, but this is my sacrificial planting grid. So I have things that plant in between so that they can eat, but they cannot eat them all. So they still grow. Cause we're not growing a herd there, but it's enough for them to eat and it's enough. And we plant them according to mature size. So you can see this is the cauliflowers. And there's some lettuce is harder because lettuce, you pretty much lose them all because they're so easy to eat and so easy to get. But if you plant harder leaves vegetables, and then it takes time to chew, and I think the fiber is better for them too. And then they take time to chew, and then leave me more plants. But it's a win-win situation for both. This is the kales. So kales are good too, because they can never finish the entire kale. So they can chew on the top, but the kale is very strong. And this is the purple kale. And the salvia here, I think this is the pink Sunday. And it's shorter and it's kind of like a underlayer. And I like to play with the different layers at different heights, colors, textures, bloom times, just like the tulips. And it's very similar. So, well, I mean, in theory, when you design. So this is the bull's blood red beet. Oh my God, it's very hard to pronounce, so many beets. So these ones are, they would eat the leaves of the beets, but and it's growing, it's underground, and root vegetable also send different nutrients back to the soil too. So it's a good thing to try plant different things with the flowers. And this is when they first planted. And then when they're bigger, and then the purple leaves actually is quite nice. So they can't eat them all, you can tell, and then you still have a good show. Or you're just gonna be a meanie, you can plant peppers. So this is another peppers. I do plant other stuff for them to eat, but these peppers are really nice. This one is the firecrackers. So it started out as yellow, and then it turned into orange and red. And then at the end of the season, some of them turn purple. So it's like within one plant. It's really nice. And this grass is a toffee twist. So they're not dead. They're just that color. But it's nice when you pair the coffee twist with a silver leaf. This is a Dusty Miller. And other sites that we do, this one is the Rideau Canal East Promenade, right in front of the Shaw Center. We have some of the trees were existing, some of them were not, and these projects about 8 years ago. So this is one of the first mixed planting that we do, is to mix bulbs with perennials, and then the different type of perennials. At the time, not all of them were native, because this is our first trial. And to a lot of people, these has to be sure value, sure performance. And so we do keep some of the grass that we knew that is going to grow. But now that we're moving on to, using more native, or if we try to use something, even if something is more prone to disease, right? So we would try to use a hybrid that is more resistant to certain disease that we know that exists in the site. So this is the site in the springtime. These are perennial bulbs. When we say perennial bulbs, because our weather is different from the Netherlands. When we see the catalogs, they tell you this is perennial, it comes back, but then in our weather it doesn't, right? So you have to really look at what it is, and then we try it out, and then I have a list of what is our staple tulips that would come back. But normally what they said perennial tulips, they only come back about 3 to 5 years, and then you'll replant. So for us, well, by saying, you know, what I said earlier, to be more innovative in when when your budget's not growing and the site, you know, there's inflation, and then the sites are, you have to maintain so many sites, otherwise you have to cut the beds and you can't have so many flower beds. So in the tulip beds, if you had, you know, came to one of my tulip presentation, I do overplanting. So I would leave them for the following year, just cut off the leaves or when they wilted, and then just have the bulbs in ground. And then we plant about 20 to 30, sometimes 40%, depending on the different varieties on top. Most of the time it's 20 to 30% that I would plant the perennial tulips. And then at least we know that there will be a show for the next year. So we cut down on the cost quite significantly, and I'm able to keep the 120 planting beds. And this is the summertime. It's a same bed. After the tulips, it's a summer flowers. And this is the fall. And, you know, it's just different time, it's different thing would be showing as an all season bed. This is another trial in Majors Hill Park. It's to have, because to a lot of people, a perennial bed in the park would always, you know, always look the same, every year look the same. So I started to create small pockets of annual pockets that we plant, because we always have our annual, because tulip is part of our history in the capital, right? And it's a flower of friendship, and we would always have tulips. And maybe in the future it would be a different way to planting, to be a little more sustainable. But it is part of Ottawa's history. So by doing that, so we always would have annual. So with the annual flowers, we would have little pockets within the edge of the perennial bed, so that we refresh the look every year. And so every bed would get about 4 to 5 different types, and then we arrange them in the different beds for the annual pockets. So it would give a fresh look every year, but it would and we still maintain the perennial bed at the back. So it's also this is the bed, well, behind it is where a lot of the wild strawberries are growing, because we have problem with our crabapple trees were all chilled up, and then we know that there were rodents in there in the area that or there were a lot of groundhogs, any rodents actually were feeding in the wintertime. So I started, you know, working with our landscape architect at the time, was working on this projects. I'm also a landscape architect, so but I'm more into feeding the wildlife and plants and stuff like that. So we suggest to have wild strawberries, which is a native species, in, you know, planted in as a ground cover. And it really, the following years, and the trees the barks were not damaged because they have a food source to eat. Just like at home, like I always leave my raspberry for the last harvest. I don't pick them. So, and then the bunnies and everything else can eat it throughout the winter. And then also depending on the sites, this one is Maple Lawn Garden. By the way, this is our 30th anniversaries of the Friends of Maple Lawn this year. So these are the bed would change every year according to the design, but then we still have our perennial bed around, and then it still has to be in harmony, like in terms of the design. And what we're trying to do with the perennial bed is to keeping the allium species, because this site started from 1830s as the household, and then the garden started in 1936. So we're still trying to keep a lot of original species, and sometimes we have to talk to the farm if they still have them on site. Then we would ask them if we can if we need more plants. But right now, because of the rehab of the walls and the site is closed, only the center bed right now is that the volunteers still have access to it. And so this is for historical sites, this is actually a National Historic Site. It's a very special garden and with the wall, and it's actually create its own microclimate in there. It's a very special garden. This was the design done in 1936. And this was a redo of, not really a redesign, but this was done in the 90s, I think early 90s, by one of the landscape architects at the NCC, when they do the inventory and knowing what is there and what doesn't grow. And then we know that the microclimate of everything changed because, you know, the tree at the time in 1930s was small, and then it became a big tree. And then a sunny plant, sunny plant in a sunny area turned into a sunny plant in a shady area, and that won't grow. So the plant has to update. And we need to let the volunteer know this is a life cycle. This is what happened because this is a garden of life. You know, everything is growing, and then we need to change. And then, you know, and when and then we have a big apple tree had blights and then has to be removed. And then all of a sudden this shady area became a sunny area. So we have to replace those plants. But how do we respect the original design and still use the same plan? Sometimes you need to be more creative, and some of the plants are not available anymore because they were done in 1930s. So we have to be creative with using a different type of hybrids or something that more resistant to certain disease that were how the previous plant died. And we also need to know some of the reason why they die. And then so we don't keep planting the same plant and keep dying. So it doesn't make sense either. So these, because our volunteers, our original 8 volunteers, it's, you know, they started this 30 years ago, and some of them are still volunteering. And then we have new volunteers, and this is a very special garden, like to me as well. And so they love the garden, and then we talked about, you know, why we don't want the same plant in the same location because of how the microclimate changed. And then everyone is, you know, you have to make sure everyone's on board, and same with our contractors who's maintaining the grass as well. So that right now because they're working on the wall, and I'm also updating the plan to see the different change of the microclimate and what I should reintroduce, or what I should because it's supposed to be symmetrical, and then when something is lost, and you can't really plant the exact same size, it takes time. So how are we going to make the best out of it? This is also another thing that I need to really think and study, and then look at the history and also the different components in this garden as well. There's a pet cemetery. I think that we need to have proper signage, and right now are just the slate stone on top, and nobody really know except their volunteers, and they would put the dymo with the name and label on it, which is really cute. But I think, you know, I wanted to do something more permanent and really recognize what was that part of the history of that garden. So we're working on it, among other things, and it's a good escape for me to read about the gardens. We still have the original peonies were planted there in the 30s. And then this is another. This slide is what I'm gonna imply. Do we have time? Are we got on time? Or you guys want to stay for another 10, 15 minutes? And this is, I want to talk about this. Is a joke that I had, a joke, but this planter, like you see this really nice hanging petunia. It's called the Kermit, I think it's called Kermit, Crazy Kermit. And then it was really nice. It have a lot of flowers, and then is lime and fuchsia pink and just crazy. It's really, really nice. And then they grow like very lush. And but every time you walk by these planters, there's a smell like a wet dog. like, and it's stinky and it's just kind of so weird. And we're trying to go in to see like what is there, but there's nothing in there. But every time, especially after it's been watered, it just smells like dogs. And then one time, after one of my colleagues went out for a run. It was summertime, and she came back. She said, I love your planters. They're so beautiful, but there's something about it. It stings. It smelled like feet. And then I was like, yeah, I didn't want to say it, right? Because during the inspection, I kind of smell it. So I started doing the research and we were digging up on what is it. And then so I started contacting the farm that did the hybrid. And then I started talking to them. And that was because this was a normal petunia. The garden petunia was crossbred with crossbreed, sorry. And with another Brazilian petunia from the wild that has a lot of hair and stinks. And that's why it breaks. And then that's what it passed down to. It has a lot of flowers, but it also passed down the other characteristic of that original plant, which is the smell. So, which is interesting. I love this plant, but I probably will put it in the gardens if I know that some of the animals wouldn't mind, but I wouldn't put it in the planter again. So this is a crazy hermit. And we also talk about themes. So when we choose the theme, different themes for the annual flowers. So this one is 2021. This was during the COVID time, and then we BNCC worked with Communities in Bloom. I'm also part of Communities in Bloom, that we go into communities, Canadian and international communities that participate in the program to evaluate and to look at the green spaces and what they can do with the green spaces to connect with people and environment, and to promote social coherence and environmental benefits for the communities. And so with Communities in Bloom, we have this Hope is Growing. This is 2021. We plant yellow because yellow is the color of hope. And that it just take off like crazy. And I don't think you can find any yellow flowers by June at the time in any garden center, which was a great thing. And then everybody's planting. And even the second year that we changed different themes, so I did a presentation. And that was the one thing that about the pandemic that brought to people that I think it's positive. It's the connection between people. I did 30 talks online all around the world for that 2 years. And to bring this, what we do with the flowers and what can we, this to bring this idea to people, there's hope. There's planting flowers, there's hope, and it's just flowers, vegetables, it's food source, it's a lot of benefits in gardening itself. And this one thing about people can connect through the internet, and people kind of realize, okay, that's what you can do, and you can learn something, and you can actually do something hands-on. And of course, I miss being with people. And there was, the first in-person was, I think, last year. It was really great too. I drove all the way to Carton Place just to see people, because they actually want me to do it like in person. It's like, sure, I'll come. So this is the yellow. So I put together some of the different yellow plants for those presentations. It could be shrubs, it could be trees, it could be flowers or vegetables. In 2022 was the year of the garden, which was proclaimed by the government of Canada as well, and many of the municipalities and provinces in Canada. And at the time, I actually also worked with the American Public Gardens Association. So in the States, they're also doing the theme red as well. And also Puerto Vallarta, it's Botanical Gardens is also part of actually, they changed the name right now. It's North American Public Gardens Association. So it includes Canada and Mexico. And so we do that theme for 2022, which is also another positive outcome of the pandemic, that people connected through gardening. So these were the red plants that I planted last year throughout the capital. This is the kale. This is the dinosaur kale. I planted with this Panacetum is called Fireworks, and they look like they're from Jurassic Park. It's really nice. And then this is the Sun Patient. This is I think this is electric orange. It was really, really bright, mixed with the pink blush, I think. And then this one at the back, my other favorite. I have a lot of favorite. This is the forget the name. Molten Fire. This is the one at the back. It's really, really red too. And this is Dragon Wings, Begonia, and this is a kangaroo paw in here. You see here, mixed with this is the Prime Minister's office with the kales, and this is the Tabasco salvia, the red ones. And so this year, 2023, we are doing Plants Love You, which is also working with Communities in Bloom. This is the color purple. And so the design has done last year. So I have the growers, they're already growing them for our program. And because Communities in Bloom is also have volunteers run by the CNLA, which are the Canadian Landscape and Nursery Association. So they can work with us to see what kind of plants, if we wanted yellow, if we wanted red, if we wanted purple, and then they work with the grower and to produce them for the market as well. So this is purple. And all the different shades of purple, you know, that's the Sania, I think that's the Xenia, that is called the Sass tea purple. Yeah, and so all the different ones, that there's a bee balm, and this is a mix of different types of their annuals and perennials. For a geranium, these are the garden geraniums, but normally in our parks, because of all the deadheading that you would have to do with these type of garden geranium, I normally plant the one that are self-cleaning, which means that the flower, the petal falls off. And Elysium, this is Angelonia. This one is called a bluebird. It's a bicolor. It's right nice too. And for other trends or how we do things in the capitals and in our floral program as the official gardener of the capital, we have a website at the NCC, and I have a blog that our marketing team, they are very nice people, are helping to put them together. So we would frequently update on, you know, the plans. I think in some of the key sites, and a lot of people would have questions asked about, you know, what kind of plan it is. And most of the time, well, I got a lot of these emails from our information center, and people would take a picture and then send in the, what is this? Or some people wouldn't tell you where, and there's no pictures, like, okay, I see this blue plant in the park. What is it? It's like, you know, you gotta be more specific. And I can tell you like 15 plants right now. So I love that kind of interaction, because that means people are paying attention, other than they just walk by. It's a park and they with the dog. And then if people have questions, it's a great thing. That means people are looking at what we're trying to do, what we're trying to create. We always talk about placemaking. I think placemaking has to be meaningful. As a meaningful placemaking, do you really bring people together? This is why we do what we do, and as you know, in public space. And I think this comes to an end. So I wanted to talk about, okay, this is the tulip. This is in the Tulip Festival website. We're also going to have in a garden with the NCC, And then every year we would do a video on behalf of the NCC with the Tulip Festival. So, but back then, you know, during the pandemic, I actually did like 12 videos because we don't want people to come visit, but we still want people to see the tulips. So I was there for like 3 hours doing all this. So they have cut it into different chapters and then sessions for the website. But since now that we want people to come to the park, so we would do one video and to showcase what is special for this year. So this year at the Tulip Festival, it's May 13 to May 22nd. And this year's theme is with the Canadian Navy. It's a naval reserve. We have a series of tulips that were honored for in the name of the naval reserves. So there are 6 different tulips this year that we're featuring, and next year we have I think it's the Air Force for next year. So we will have some showcase in the park this year. So we try to do things ahead of time, but these themes this past few years are a drive by the Tulip Festival, and they're very proactive and they're very involving. So it's a very, I should say, engaging with all the partners as well. So it's a good thing that everyone works together. So this is the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.
You know, I realized that one of the things that I was not able to do, because we're sharing a computer right now,
Okay.
I need to get on there to just check and see if there are any questions for you on our YouTube site. So let me pull up another chair. We'll try and share the stage here a little bit. Not block the camera too much. So we'll just go over to the YouTube channel. No, that's your presentation. Where is it? Okay. So there were some issues with the sound, which we know about. Tina, are there any geraniums used in the beds? Are any of the geraniums used in the beds overwintered indoors, dormant or otherwise? And that was a question from Rosemary Campbell.
Okay. We don't really plant a lot of the geranium because of the deadhead and then the more labor intensive reason. We normally just plant the type that would be self-cleaning. So those would be too small to overwinter.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you did actually, this is a follow-on question from Rosemary about who are your suppliers and how do you get those gorgeous size and quality of the plants that you're using?
We normally don't, it's not our direct contract. So it's normally is our contractors that they would find their own growers. And then we work together and we try to do more locals now. We still do, and some of the species that you can't really find, and some of the materials that some smaller greenhouses were not able to get, because a lot of time that the cuttings or plugs, they have a minimum order that you have to order certain amount before they will sell to you, right? Because it's commercial. So smaller greenhouse, unfortunately, a lot of times that they could not get some of the species that we wanted. And we wanted to try we want to use the hybrid and then the species that we know that is sure performance, and it's also it also doesn't cost a lot of problems, like in terms of high maintenance or and then we try to pick the species that are more low maintenance and also it thrives in the environments because there are 120 sites and some of our bats has some of them have irrigation, some of them don't. The one that don't have irrigation, we would have to have a contractor to come by with a water truck to, like a fire hose and use something that need to be more sustained to this type of watering system. So so it really depends on the contractors, like who they use. Yeah, but there are a few of the bigger local nurseries that they're pretty good, I believe. Yeah.
Thank you. I have to say that I used to quiz the contractors at Commissioners Park, and they were really very knowledgeable. They knew what the plants were and they knew how to take care of them. And
Yeah.
So you have some really good people working for you.
Yeah.
I'm going to turn to the hall now, and Josie. I'm just going to repeat the question.
Yes.
So for the benefit of our online audience, question from Josie was about deadheading the flowers off of the coleus plants.
We do, depending on what look you're going for, right? So, and also depending on which type too. So, some of them, and also depending on what is already in the soil that make them flower more. Some of them, if they flower too much, the leaf production would be low. And if I'm looking for more foliage, I would have them deadhead. I mean, yeah, just remove the flower heads.
Any other questions in the hall here? Sure, go ahead, please.
Excuse me, what proportion of the tulips do you lose to squirrels?
So the question was, how many of the tulips do you lose to squirrels?
Actually, not much. I mean, I know which bat that have a lot of trees around it. There's probably some of the site that I know have more squirrel than others. But what you can do with the squirrel problems that we would, we use chicken manure. Those come in pellet form, so it doesn't smell or anything, and it's dry. And then after you plant them at home, right? You planted the tulip bulbs, and you try to kind of cover your trays. And sometimes people would cover them with dry leaves or something. But I found it chicken manure, and then also when you plant them, you can put the bone meal or blood meal because squirrel normally don't like the scent of other animals. And with the blood meal, I found it helped, and also the chicken manure is, I think, it's what really works for us. But we don't really lose a lot to squirrels. It's just too many for them. And you would see that sometimes an odd tulip come up in the middle of nowhere, or under the shrubs and stuff. It's the squirrels, but not too many for us. Like, fortunately, knock on wood. We always said that we're the official gardener of the capitals, and then the squirrels, they are the unofficial gardeners of the capitals because they just plant them everywhere.
Any other questions, Steve?
Have you thought of putting descriptions of the plants that you have? It's like putting a little post that has a QR code on it, that goes to your blog or something like that.
Yes, I'm actually one of my colleagues working on the Garden of the Provinces and Territories in the downtown, across from Supreme Court. No, across from Archive, the Canadian Library and Archive, and we actually have more description on it. Is what do you call it? Interpretation boards in the park, but I think with the QR code and having current, this is what we have been talking with our marketing team too, because what we have to do is just to update the website, and that would be the same code, and it could lead you to the same link. With the amount of questions, I think if we get more questions, I think that would push that project. I'm not
Lots
implying
of,
anything. but yeah.
So I'm seeing lots of compliments online and on the OHS YouTube site from Maggie Henderson Davis. She's wondering about the pink vervain, pink Verbena bonariensis. She's got seeds for the blue one. Many of us have grown the blue one,
Mhm.
but where would she find the pink seeds?
For me, I normally shop through the catalog, so I can't really like, but there's a few of the seed suppliers, right? Ball Seeds is one of the biggest suppliers in North America. They often have a lot of a lot of different varieties, but you would just have to find a grower or a greenhouse that would purchase from them and grow. Pink verbena, it's kind of tough, but then there are different ones. The lollipops, I think it's a nice one. It's the same verbena, but then it has a nice shape, and I think it's less purple than the other ones.
So maybe looking for
Yeah,
lollipop
Yeah.
as the cultivar
Yeah.
might lead her in the right direction. Okay, any more questions in the hall? I'm gonna, oh, shoot, Josie.
What's so much like to around stuff? It wouldn't invest in decide that.
I'm thinking rat
I-
poison myself, but
you want to drive them away. I think it's the Mexican marigold is something that they wouldn't want to eat. For me, I do in my own vegetable gardens. I actually have built up a little fence around it, but it's removable. And so at the end of the season, the last harvest, I don't pick anything. So I would open up the little gates, so the rabbit knows where to get their winter food, and the raspberry bush, and then in the summertime I close it off, because for me, a small vegetable garden, it's big loss that they just come for one night and everything's gone. So in the park is different. In the park, because of the beds, we have 150 square meters for the smallest. So I plant a lot of fibrous vegetables. So they would eat, they would have food, but then it takes a longer time for them to finish them. I don't know what they were never gonna finish it, but they would be lower, reduce your damage if you plant more fibrous vegetables.
So good evening, everyone. My name's Julianne Lebrache, and I'm the president this year of the Ottawa Hort Society. I'm going to just finish off tonight. There was one person with a hand up, so I'm wondering if I could get that last question. Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, this is irrelevant to flowers. Of course, it's that the NCC has a lot of land, some of which is more or less what in agricultural terms would say they is fallow, which is basically abandoned, really. And so they cut the grass. And I'm thinking, for example, one area that's been like the 4% of NCC lands is along the Rio River, Riverside Drive. Other places where there's beautiful willow trees and it's manicured, it looks great, but along that area, not only there's no flower beds, but there's also not even trees that are even real eyesore. It's really a shame. And I know obviously the NCC can't do everything everywhere, and other places attract far more tourists in that part. But I noticed we were talking about using volunteers. And whether there might be possibilities of working volunteers for a place like there. I know, for example, there's a lot of sitting parsons or whatever it's called, horrible stuff.
The wild person.
That grows there, so obviously it needs to be removed.
Yeah.
And we could plant native plants. I'm just wondering hopefully there will be an opportunity
Mhm.
to plan some landscaping for places like there
Mhm.
where it would be more of a laissez-faire approach, I
Mhm.
guess, but not the kind where you allow vacant places to come in.
Mhm.
Which is really
We do have a lot of, I would say a lot, but a few volunteer groups that had come forward to us and asked if they could, if they have a group of people and then help them. And then we have in Maple Lawn Gardens, it's been a long time, and we have Hampton Park, and we have people at the time, you know, they were with the tent caterpillars, and then they actually go out, our volunteers how to remove them, and they kind of educated people, don't use spray and don't jump them because the birds would eat the caterpillars, you know, things like that. And then we have our volunteers work with us on the education program. There, we have projects that we have volunteers that help with removing invasive species. Of course, that would be under the guidance of the professionals, or anything. We wouldn't want to put anyone in danger. But there are sometimes it's also we have to look at the ownership of the land as well. Sometimes it's maybe a lot of them maybe the SCC's land, and some of them are the cities, and some of them it's, you know, easements, and so we do have volunteer groups that that come up to you know, kind of voice that, you know, they put together a team of people, and whether we can support that, you know. And we have a lot of volunteer program as well, you know, with our archaeology team, and with our we also have some in Brewers Creek, which is in the Gatineau side. We also have Gatineau Park. There are a lot of volunteer groups that would we work together to like, obviously we can't be everywhere. So and if there is specific site that have enough interest, then I think there would be a possibility.
So there'll be a way to find out.
Maybe you can talk to our information center, and then they would kind of divert people to the different coordinators, volunteer coordinators.
So my job is to thank you tonight, Tina. And when you talked about the theme for this year being plants love you, I was thinking, well, gardeners love you because for a few reasons. One is that I'm in awe. Like, I think I can barely garden my front and backyard, and you're gardening like 120 beds with different plants coming up at different times during the season. I also think you're amazing because you're so creative. You know, who needs all the geraniums and the marigolds? You are so creative with kales and grasses and all kinds of interesting plants. And really close to home for me, because I have a garden that I love the wildlife. They're as important to me as the plants. I love the birds and the bees and the creepy crawly things, because they're all part of what makes my garden so interesting. And you have come out and you're not afraid to say it. So good for you. You're gardening outside the box, and I think that's amazing. The other thing too, that I really have to thank you for is that you have a true sense of community spirit. You're on the board of the Ottawa Hort Society, and you go the extra mile. You don't just do your job, you do a whole lot more than that. So just on behalf of everyone tonight, a really huge thank you for coming and talking.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Before everybody leaves, I have one other thank you that really can't be unrecognized tonight. You probably saw there was a little bit of fumbling tonight with the technology, and I want to share the story of that because it's a story really about a community and a village, how people work together. So technology is so complicated now, as you can imagine, you know. I mean, before the pandemic, it was complicated. Now it's like 10 times more complicated. And because we're a small group, we basically have one person who's our tech guy. He does everything. He also has the keys to the church. So we got an email, I think it was Saturday or Sunday, that he was dealing with a family crisis. He was in Toronto and he wouldn't be able to come to the meeting tonight. And so we have had all of these amazing volunteers, including Rebecca and others. I mean, I don't want to go through them because I'll forget someone, but all of these people, and it's not just the Ottawa Port Society. We've had the Ottawa Valley Rock people join us and the Master Gardeners and some of their equipment. And I think the Barhaven Gardeners. Anyway, all of these groups have come together to help with tonight. And, you know, it maybe wasn't really as perfect as it could have been, but given what we were trying to do, I am just so in awe, particularly because I am not tech. I'm not a techie myself. So a big thank you, everybody.
We're gonna talk about the tour.
Well, I could mention it briefly. We're trying to kind of bring back the glory days of the past with the Ottawa Hort Society. And I know lots of people love the garden tours. So three of us, Cindy Lyon and myself and Tula, we're going to try what we're calling some pop-up tours this summer. And so we haven't got them quite planned, but they're going to happen in different gardens, in different locations. And Tina's going to be the first one, I believe. So May the 10th at 10 o'clock, we're going to be meeting and she's going to take us on a tour of some of these wonderful beds. So I can hardly wait. I'll be there for sure. And I hope you will be too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Oh,
I'm
thank
sure if you're willing to stick around, I'm sure there'll be people who have additional questions for you. We also have, who's going to do the door prizes? Did you get a ticket for door prize?
No, not yet.
Oh, no. Okay.
I get that too.
You also get your membership card.
Oh, thank you.
You've got to take the first number, okay?
Okay.
We'll get there. Okay, just last three numbers.
Last three numbers, it's 656.
656.
Oh, it's nice.
That's you.
Okay, you're hired.
Okay, would you come over, Rebecca? And take
Wow.
Yeah.
take one.
So I want to talk about the May 10th tour. It's going to be at the Tulip Festival because the festival actually started on the 13th. So, but this year is later. Normally it's the first week of May. So this year is from the second week of May. So we would have some of the early and mid-season tulips in bloom on that week. So I think that we can kind of avoid the crowd if we go in the morning during the weekdays before the festival. It would be nice. So it would be May 10th. I think it's a Wednesday. At 10 o'clock, we would meet at the Queen Juliana bed, the first bed at the Preston entrance.
Okay, the second winner, Rebecca just picked is 654. There you go. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Right. There we go. 655. And I told you were going to pick one there.
Are we still live? Should we turn that off?
Yeah, we should shut that off, shouldn't we? People online are getting it.
The next one is 664.
Okay.